They said, "You can sleep under the stars." I turned my empty parking lot into something they couldn't even imagine. And now they beg me for help. Before we start, hit the subscribe button and stick around for this insane story. I have to tell you about the worst inheritance anyone could ever imagine. My parents gifted my sister, Emily, a multi-million-dollar luxury villa. But me? They handed me an empty parking lot. Literally. When they told me, they smirked and said, "You can sleep under the stars." I laughed on the inside, but only because crying felt too weak. Looking back, I probably should have seen it coming. Dinner that night was clearly a setup. My parents never invited me over, unless it was to remind me how much of a disappointment I supposedly was. Deep down, there was still that stupid, naive sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. So I work as a mechanic. Nothing fancy, but I'm good at what I do. I fix things. I get paid. I mind my own business. Meanwhile, Emily, she's their perfect little angel, never worked a real job in her life. Always had everything handed to her on a silver platter. She could probably burn down their house and they'd still blame me. That's just how it had always been. The moment I walked in that night, Emily was already there, sipping wine like she owned the place. A smug, self-satisfied smile plastered across her face. Dad was flipping through the newspaper, barely acknowledging my existence. Mom hovered in the kitchen, pretending to be busy, probably so she didn't have to make eye contact with me. "Wow, Logan," Emily said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. "You actually showed up? Took the night off from changing tires?" I ignored her, jaw tight, and took a seat. Mom finally spoke, her tone soft for Emily but distant for me. "It's important. We've decided to divide our assets." Emily's eyes lit up immediately. She already knew she was getting something huge. "We're giving you the beach house, sweetheart," Mom said, practically beaming. Emily gasped, clutching her chest like she'd just won an award. "Oh my God, the one in Malibu!" I waited, stomach twisting, hoping for something for me, some recognition, a piece of the pie. Dad turned to me, expression flat, cold. "And you, Logan." The parking lot. The room went silent. My brain refused to process it at first. The old lot on 8th Street, overgrown weeds, cracked pavement, a rusted old sign barely clinging to its post. Mom waved her hand dismissively, as if presenting some rare treasure. "It's land. You can figure something out." Emily burst out laughing, a high-pitched, mocking sound that made my teeth grind. "Oh my God, that's hilarious. At least you'll always have a place to sleep under the stars." Dad chuckled dryly, humorless. "Maybe you can open a lemonade stand or something." I gripped the edge of the chair so hard my knuckles went white. But I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply nodded. "Okay," I said, calm and measured. "I'll make something of it." I stood, feeling a surge of cold determination. They thought they could humiliate me. They thought this would break me. They had no idea that this worthless slab of concrete would become the key to the most satisfying revenge of my life. Memories flashed through my mind. Me at 16, covered in grease from my first job at the auto shop, holding my first paycheck with pride. I wanted to show them that I was working hard. Emily? She was on the couch whining about wanting a new car for her birthday. Dad hadn't even looked at me. "You're going to smell like oil for the rest of your life, huh?" Mom had said. Emily never had to work for anything. They bought her a brand new BMW that same week, and now, years later, nothing had changed. I took a deliberate breath, pushing back from the table. "Fine," I said again, this time louder. "I'll make something out of that lot. And when I do, don't come knocking." Emily rolled her eyes. "Sure, Logan. Can't wait to see what you do with a slab of concrete," Dad muttered under his breath. Always so dramatic. I ignored him and walked out without another word. Outside, I stared at that useless lot, weeds growing through cracks in the asphalt, the faded signs swaying in the wind. Their cruel joke had just given me an idea, a challenge I was going to accept. They wanted me to fail, I was going to prove them wrong, in the most spectacular way. The night sky stretched endlessly above me. "Sleep under the stars," they said. Fine, I would. But not as they intended. That empty parking lot wasn't a punishment. It was the beginning of something I couldn't wait to build. Something that would make them regret every mocking word, every sneer, every dismissive glance. The next morning, I stood in front of that sad, cracked parking lot like it was a battlefield. To everyone else, it was worthless. But to me, it was opportunity staring me in the face. If my parents thought they could humiliate me, they were about to find out how wrong they were. I got to work immediately. The first thing I did was file for the necessary permits to allow food trucks. A simple slab of concrete wasn't much, but it could host multiple vendors. Tacos, burgers, coffee trucks, you name it. I wanted people to come, to gather, to spend, and to see the difference between a gift and a hard-earned success. I took out a small loan, not from a bank, but from my boss at the auto shop. He believed in me, in hard work, and he'd seen what I was capable of. With that money, I bought bright lights, built a few makeshift benches, put up banners, and even invested in some speakers for music. It wasn't much, but it was enough to turn the lot into a place people would notice. The first week was slow. People wandered by, curious about the new spot, but most of them didn't stay. That was fine. I had patience. I spent hours talking to the food truck owners, making deals, organizing schedules, and ensuring quality. I wanted this to work, not just for me, but as a statement. By the third week, the transformation was undeniable. The lot had become a small, vibrant food park. Lines formed, local bloggers wrote about it, and social media posts started spreading like wildfire. I remember standing there one evening, watching hundreds of people enjoy themselves, laughing, taking photos, and listening to live music. And I thought, this is just the beginning. That's when the first reaction came from my family. My phone buzzed, and I saw it was Mom. I ignored it. Then another call. Then another. They needed something. Now that the lot was no longer just a joke, now that it was thriving, suddenly they cared. Funny how that worked. A few days later, Emily herself appeared at the edge of my lot. I was checking inventory when I noticed her. Her usual smug attitude replaced with something else. Hesitation, maybe even fear. "Logan," she said, arms crossed, I need to talk to you." I glanced at my watch, making it obvious. 5 minutes. Make it count. She looked nervous, fumbling slightly. "I need to sell the beach house." "I need money fast," I smirked. "Let me guess. Designer bags, vacations, influencer lifestyle debts." Her face went red. "It's complicated," she muttered. I need $200,000. I leaned against a food truck, arms crossed, enjoying every second of it. "Oh, now my little lot is a real business, huh? Now you're asking for help?" She hesitated. "I'll pay you back. Please." I studied her, voice low and deliberate. "No. The same way you, Mom and Dad said no when I needed support. The same way you laughed in my face. So no, Emily, I won't bail you out." Her jaw dropped. Rage started building, but I stayed calm. Actions have consequences. She had thrown tantrums, mocked me, humiliated me, and now it was her turn to feel powerless. Meanwhile, the food trucks kept serving, the music played, people laughed, and it dawned on me. Not only had I survived their cruelty, but I was thriving in spite of it. Every obstacle they threw, every sneer, every dismissive comment, it all became fuel for my success. A week later, my parents showed up together. Mom's arms were crossed, foot tapping in agitation. Dad looked tired, slumped shoulders, a defeated expression I'd never seen before. They approached cautiously, like intruders in someone else's world. "Logan," Mom started, voice tight. "We need to talk." I sighed, leaning against a table, casually surveying my thriving lot. "Let me guess. Emily ran crying to you, and now you need some sense of responsibility pep talk from me?" Dad finally spoke, voice low. We need your help. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, now I'm a son again. The same son you handed a slab of concrete to while giving Emily a mansion? Mom's jaw tightened, forcing a calm mask. It's not about the past, I chuckled dryly. Oh, it absolutely is. Because if you hadn't treated me like dirt, you wouldn't be standing here begging me for help now. Their faces paled slightly, but I wasn't done. You ignored me, humiliated me, gave me nothing. And now, when I make something of it, suddenly I'm family? Funny how that works. Emily was still hovering at the edge, silent, embarrassed. She had clearly underestimated me. And at that moment, I realized the truth. Their world had shifted. They weren't in control anymore. I was. The lot, once a symbol of their mockery, had become my empire. And my empire was just getting started. A week passed, and business at the lot was booming. Music, laughter, lines of hungry customers. It was everything I'd hoped for. And yet, the calls kept coming. Mom, Dad, Emily, all of them, trying in vain to insert themselves into my success. It started small. 1-star reviews appeared online. Overpriced, rude owner. Avoid at all costs. I laughed. I knew exactly who was behind it. Mom had always had a flair for dramatic sabotage, and Emily had the enthusiasm to match. Their attempts to humiliate me now fell flat in the face of my growing empire. Then came the city inspector. Anonymous complaint, he said, shuffling papers nervously. Concerns about permits, seating, safety codes. I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, middle-aged woman and her spoiled daughter? He blinked, hesitant. I can't say, but exactly. Mom and Emily, trying to bury me in legal red tape, hoping my little venture would collapse before it could flourish. But I didn't panic. I hired a lawyer, double-checked every permit, every regulation, and ensured everything was beyond reproach. Their attempts at sabotage backfired spectacularly. I didn't just survive, I thrived. I expanded the lot, added weekend craft markets, partnered with local artists, and hosted VIP influencer nights. The more they tried to hurt me, the more my business grew. Every obstacle became fuel, every insult a reason to push harder. Then came the night Emily made the biggest mistake of her life. It was a Saturday, the lot buzzing with activity, hundreds of people enjoying tacos, coffee, and live music. Lines stretched around the block. The energy was electric, and then she appeared, drunk, disheveled, her makeup smudged, designer dress wrinkled, dragging Mom behind her. "This place is a joke!" she screamed, slurring her words. A few customers froze, pulling out their phones. Perfect. I walked toward her, calm. "Emily, leave. You think you're a big shot now? You think you're better than us?" Her face was red, rage dripping from every word. I smiled. "I don't have to think it. I just am." Her hands flailed, and before anyone could react, she grabbed a drink off a nearby table and hurled it at me. Cold beer soaked my shirt. Silence fell. Then, 2 security guards gently subdued her, while the crowd murmured in shock. Mom screamed, "Let her go! She's your sister!" I crouched, voice low. "Actions have consequences, Emily." 10 minutes later, the flashing lights of police cars filled the lot. Emily, begging, pleading, humiliated. The same helpless expression I had worn years ago when they mocked me. But now, the tables had turned. Mom and Dad tried to intervene, voices trembling, panic in their eyes. "Do something!" Mom yelled. I crossed my arms. "Oh, you mean like how you did something when you laughed in my face and gave me nothing?" They had no answer. And then, days later, they returned. This time, desperate. No smug smiles, no jokes, just quiet anxiety. They hovered awkwardly at the edge of the lot as I finished a meeting. I noticed and finally walked over. "You're back," I said, casual, arms crossed. "Let me guess. Emily sent you because she's too embarrassed to face me?" Dad's shoulders slumped. "We need to talk," I smirked. "Oh, Like the talk when you laughed in my face and handed me a slab of concrete, while Emily got a mansion? Mom's lips pressed together, holding back. It's not about the past, I chuckled, dry and cold. Oh, it absolutely is. If you hadn't treated me like dirt, you wouldn't be here begging for help now. Emily, standing nearby, flushed red, realized she had underestimated me. I had built this empire from what they thought was nothing, and suddenly they were powerless, reliant on me. They explained, finally, the truth. Emily had maxed out her credit cards trying to maintain her lifestyle. The beach house was on the brink of foreclosure. Dad's business was failing after partners bailed, and now they needed me. $500,000 to bail out the family. I laughed. Funny. The same family that ignored me now wants help. Mom's jaw tightened. You have enough. Why are you being so spiteful? I leaned closer, voice deliberate. Spiteful? No. I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine. You laughed, mocked, humiliated me for years. Now you know what it feels like to be powerless. And I'm not helping. Their faces went pale. Dad whispered. You wouldn't. I smiled. Wouldn't I? Watch closely. I had already planned this. While they were drowning in debt, I had quietly purchased their childhood home. The same house they had treated me with disdain. Mom's face went white. No, you're lying. I showed her the purchase confirmation. Dad's hands shook. You bought our house? I nodded. The one you handed to me like trash. The one where you let Emily treat me like I was nothing. Now it's mine. Mom grabbed my arm. Please, Logan, we'll do anything. I pulled away. Now you understand. You had your chance to treat me with respect. You didn't. Now I own your house. I own your choices. And you? You live under the terms I set. I handed them a contract. They could stay, but they would pay rent every month on my terms. Mom gasped. Dad's eyes widened. I smiled coldly. Welcome to the consequences of your actions. The following weeks were surreal. My business continued booming, growing faster than I could have imagined. The lot, once a worthless slab of concrete, had become the hottest spot in town. Food trucks, live music, craft markets, and events brought in hundreds of people every weekend. Social media buzzed non-stop. Everywhere I looked, my empire thrived. And through it all, my parents and Emily had no choice but to watch. Every call, every text, every attempt to sway me was met with the same calm refusal. They had mocked me for years, dismissed my ambitions, and now they were powerless spectators to my success. Then came the inevitable confrontation, the one I had been waiting for. Mom, Dad, and Emily arrived at the lot once again. This time their expressions were pale, strained, almost broken. Emily, usually so smug, avoided eye contact entirely. Mom's hands shook as she clutched her handbag, and Dad's shoulders slumped like a man carrying the weight of decades of regret. I approached them slowly, arms crossed, letting the tension build. You're back, I said casually. Let me guess, you've run out of options? Mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. Dad's voice trembled. Logan! Please, we need your help. I laughed, cold and deliberate. The same family that gave Emily a mansion and handed me a parking lot? The same people who laughed at me for years? And now you need help? Emily finally spoke, her voice barely audible. We made mistakes. Please. I shook my head. No, you made choices. You made them every time you ignored me, humiliated me, and treated me like nothing. Now, it's my turn to decide. Pulling the contract from my pocket, I laid it on the table. You can live in the house, but on my terms. Rent every month, no excuses. Miss a payment, and it's mine. Simple as that. Mom's jaw dropped. You can't do that. That's our home, I smiled. It's my home now. You had your chance to treat me fairly. You didn't. Welcome to the consequences of your actions. Dad slumped against the wall, defeated, while Emily's face crumpled with shame. They had finally realized the tables had turned. They were no longer the ones in control. Weeks turned into months, and life settled into a new rhythm. My parents paid rent faithfully every month, their pride shredded but their survival intact. Emily kept her distance, humiliated but wiser. My food truck park expanded further, bringing in new vendors and bigger events. The lot had become a landmark, a symbol of resilience, hard work, and ultimate revenge. The satisfaction wasn't just in the money. It wasn't in the empire I built. It was in the quiet knowledge that the people who had spent years mocking me were finally seeing my value. They were forced to respect me, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. I had turned the worst gift they ever gave me into the greatest success of my life. Sometimes I would glance at them, sitting quietly in the rented home, and smile. They had treated me as if I were nothing, but I had proven that even the smallest, most overlooked parcel of land, like an empty parking lot, could become a kingdom if you had vision and determination. And so I thrived. Business grew, happiness grew, self-respect grew, and every once in a while, when Emily glared at me with a mixture of envy and shame, I'd remember how far I had come, not just from the parking lot, but from the years of ridicule, humiliation, and neglect. Every obstacle, every insult, every sneer had only made me stronger. I had been handed a parking lot as a cruel joke. I had turned it into a thriving empire, and in the process, I had taught my family a lesson they would never forget. Not through rage, not through anger, but through success, determination, and quiet, unshakable confidence. Life doesn't always give you the gifts you deserve, but it gives you the tools to create them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in hurting others, it's in rising so high that they can't ignore you. Top Reddit comments say things like, "Wow, I didn't see that twist coming. She played the long game perfectly." He got what he deserved. I felt that ending deep. One of the best stories I've heard here. Thanks for watching. Drop a comment and let me know what you would have done in this crazy situation.